When it comes to intellectual property, there's few that can compare to Marvel. There's no kid that doesn't know who Spider-Man is, or Captain America, or the Incredible Hulk. They have books, movies, games, the most recently of which, of course, is Marvel Rivals. And when I think of a person who is into Marvel and is into hero shooters, I, respectfully of course, think of a fat diabetic loser. And I thought to myself, what if I'm thinking about this the wrong way? Right? I'm trying to turn a new leaf in my life. I'm trying to become a nicer person. What if it's not that Marvel and hero shooters makes you reliant on insulin to live? What if it's the insulin that's making you like Marvel and hero shooters? So sourcing insulin is not as easy as some of the other stuff that I've gotten. At first, just like anything else, I tried looking around for people I know, and I realized I actually don't really know any diabetics, mostly because I just don't associate with like weak people. And so if I can't get it like locally or homegrown, then I start looking towards online pharmacies. So I'm like looking around, and then I remembered that one of the ingredients in the anabolic cocktail that bodybuilders use is insulin. Luckily, the website where I bought steroids from, allegedly, also had insulin from Mumbai, India. So shout out to those guys. I know you guys have a bad rap. It's a big country. There's lots of stuff going. It's a billion people, all right? Bound to be a lot of bad apples. So I bought it from Mumbai. From Mumbai, it goes to Zurich, Switzerland. From Zurich, it goes to Queens. Then from Queens, it goes to Metropolitan New York. From Metropolitan New York, it actually stops by in Aurora, Colorado, doing a little sightseeing. And then it goes to Portland, and then it goes to Eugene, which is where I'm at. After this epic, I allegedly have a vial of insulin in the palm of my hand. Actually, one of the more scarier things I've already... people don't appreciate, this is a lethal amount of insulin. This could easily kill somebody. Like, if you had a small American child, because we only deal with patriots here, and you asked them what was more lethal between this and this, almost all of them would get it wrong. It's a fucked up question. They don't know what insulin is. The diabetic ones do. But crazy to think about. Now, something I did want to discuss that I usually don't in these videos is choosing the dosage. Because usually the dosage, I don't want to say doesn't matter, but in the previous examples, it was either dosed out for me in pill form, or it being over or under wasn't that huge of a deal. In the case of insulin, a very small amount is truly like a life and death situation. I have one of the props with me right here, and it will say 100 IUs per milliliter. 100 IUs, which stands for international units, which is basically just one unit is considered a potent enough amount of insulin that it's considered an international unit. It's just something that like a bunch of doctors basically agree that, hey, this much insulin is an active unit. The smart and intelligent way to do this is to measure my blood sugar and safely determine how much insulin I can take while monitoring my blood sugar constantly. I'm not gonna do any of that because I can't be fucked. And also I don't know how. So as of right now, I weigh 230 pounds or 105 kilos. For type 1 diabetics, right? They have to do something to the tune of 0.4 to 1.0 IUs per kilogram per day. And then you have type 2, which is 0.1 to 0.2 IUs per kilogram per day. What we need to figure out is how much gurm needs. Yeah, you sticking with me so far? So to actually turn these into numbers, we're gonna use the bottom half. Doesn't make sense to use the top half. I'm not trying to go into shock or die. So this doesn't make a ton of sense to us. And type 1, I'll get into it later in the video and explain the differences. Type 1 is a lot worse than type 2. So we don't even want to do type 1. We want to do type 2. So we take 105 and we multiply it times 0.1. And that gives us 10.5 IUs per day. I will not go over this number per day. I'm only going to be doing one injection a day. So I'm thinking we half this number. 5 IUs per injection, with an interesting addendum. With my fat Vienna sausage fingers, it's actually very difficult to get 5 IUs per drop. So in reality, it's more something along the lines of 4 to 6-ish IUs per day. And that's gonna be the goal. The first week, I'm gonna look at 4. If I feel good at 4, I'll bump it up to 6. There is a secret hidden option, and that's bodybuilders. How do bodybuilders decide how much they're gonna do? And the answer is They don't. They kind of just guess. And so I was actually looking on certain bodybuilding forums. There was a guy telling a story on there about how his friend actually died overdosing on insulin. And he said that his friend died at 30 IUs. Skull emoji. And you're thinking, Gurm, 30 IUs is way more than 46 IUs. Why even bring it up? Look, in the medical field, a lot of redundancies. Anyone who's in it, anyone who's been a patient, you know that there's a lot of redundancies. It's important to see this type of stuff, to know that that's too much. However, reading through the forums, you actually forget that bodybuilding is a competitive sport where people are trying to win. And so there are some people who say that 30 IUs is actually fine. And the people who are saying that this is too high are actually gatekeeping information. So maybe it's back on. It's not, because we've already decided on 4 to 6. But it's an interesting thing to look out for. The bodybuilding forums have just confirmed that anything over 10 IUs, I think I did that the wrong way. It should be this way. It doesn't matter. I won't go over 10. More than 10 is not necessary. This is what we're going for, right here. With that out of the way, we can get the control started. I have a Marvel Rivals account called FNAF Lover 2256, and he's ready to get his grind on. So there is a lot of egg on my face. It is late, and I just finished my 150th game of Marvel Rivals on the control. I guess it's better if I show you. I hit GM. Oh, let me switch this to competitive. So 150 games, 90 wins. I think that makes that a 60% win rate. I'm not sure. You know, you spend so much time wondering who the fat diabetic loser is in your games, and you never really think about the possibility that it's you the whole time. Before we get any further in the video, I want to do a quick lesson in insulin. Insulin is awesome. It does a lot of useful things, the most importantly of which is it regulates blood sugar. There's sugar in your blood, glucose, whatever you want to call it, and it needs to go in and out of cells, and it goes through blood to do that. And insulin is produced in the pancreas, specifically in islet cells. And there are two types of islet cells, beta cells and alpha cells. Beta cells is what produces insulin, and alpha cells is what produces glucagon, which is the counterpart to insulin. If insulin lowers your blood sugar, glucagon increases blood sugar. A yin and yang type of thing, yeah? Now, within beta cells, there are GLUT2 transporters. These are the things that bring glucose in or out of the cell. Whether or not glucose gets in or out of the cell, that's the start of the process to release insulin. The glucose comes in, it gets broken down by glucokinase into a bunch of other glucose stuff, and then into pyruvate, and then the pyruvate goes into the mitochondria, and it starts the Krebs cycle. Within the Krebs cycle, the point of the Krebs cycle is to turn ADP, adenosine diphosphate, into adenosine triphosphate. Adenosine triphosphate is energy, right? It's the thing we use to power stuff. When glucose is brought into the cell, the Krebs cycle is activated, and that turns ADP into ATP. When that is not happening, there is a potassium channel that is constantly leaking potassium out of the beta cell, which is making the cell negative. The second that glucose is brought into the cell, ADP is then turned into ATP, which allows for calcium to flood the cell, turning the cell positive. Subsequently, push insulin out of the cell into the bloodstream, which allows glucose to go into our cells and do all the stuff that it needs to do. Now, if any part of this process is disrupted, that is how you result in diabetes. And there's lots of types of diabetes. The two most common ones that I'd like to focus on can be separated into two categories. One that you can't make fun of, and one that you can. Medically referred to as type 1 and type 2 diabetes. And so, in the case of type 1 diabetes, they have an autoimmune disease. There's something that's attacking their beta cells. They just can't produce it. They can't make insulin. They're not releasing it. And so, they need exogenous external insulin to just make everything function, to make everything move, and that usually kind of occurs at a kind of a young age. In type 2 diabetes, they have just built up a resistance to it, generally because of lifestyle and just food habits, all that stuff. They have just built up a tolerance and a resistance to insulin that they don't make enough, and so they need more to kind of make up for that. There are other types of diabetes. There's like MODY, and then like gestational or something, which is like for pregnant women and stuff. There's a lot of stuff that can go wrong with you. Usually it's pretty rare, so I wouldn't be tripping about it. Otherwise, I think that's everything I have to say. We continue with the scheduled programming. Alright, so it's been like 10 days. So far, the only symptom I've really been experiencing consistently is if I do the injection and then I don't eat for a while, my hand kind of starts to shake like really bad. So yeah, that's kind of it. What do I even do with half a gallon of used syringe needles? Give it to homeless people, I guess. So, it has been 30 days. Another 150 Marvel Rivals games. Stayed true to my word. Played 5 Marvel Rival games a day. I did stray. One day I did stray. I had a particularly tough day at work, and I thought to myself, you know what would be really nice? A shock-induced coma. So there was one day I did 8 IUs. I hadn't eaten anything. I did 8, but nothing really happened. My mouth tasted like metal, and I had a bit of a headache, but that's like kind of it. The results are kind of exciting. So in 150 games, I ended up GM2. I did reach GM1, but I deranked out of it. I won 95 games rather than the last time of 90. And I didn't do the statistical analysis on it, but I doubt it's good enough to reject the null hypothesis. 5 more wins is like barely more than 5% increase in win rate, right? But yeah, that's kind of it. I didn't really notice any changes to my body. I think there was at one point, I do think my digestion is worse. I do think I'm like slower at it now. I imagine I'll bounce back in the coming months as I kind of reacclimate to regular eating habits and stuff like that. I don't like Marvel Rivals anymore, less than I did. I probably like it less. I'm probably not going to play it anymore after this. But there's something definitely there. There's something definitely there. There's something to being diabetic and liking Marvel. I just can't quite crack it yet. Maybe if I did a type 1 dosage. But yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I'll smell you guys later. Bye-sies. So I'm editing the video you're watching, or I guess you just watched. I didn't mention the price of the insulin. For 1,000 IUs with shipping was $65. No insurance, no like nothing. Yeah, the system we live in is a little broken.